Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. The mind maintains a vision, a sound, a recording of our earthly senses, vision, oral, sense, smell, so on and so forth, from moment to moment to moment to moment, which creates our illusion of permanence, right? When in actuality, our brains and our minds are not designed, made to experience the actual moments of manifestation of energy, right? The constant re-manifestation of this momentum of karma, energies, potential, manifesting, influenced by that manifestation in the environment of the universe, to then instantiate in the next moment based on the previous moment, and our minds just connect those moments and give us an illusion we call reality of a timeline of, and this is where the illusion of permanence comes from, and that's our attachment. That's the basic physiological source of our mental attachment, this process of connecting moment to moment to moment to moment. As we enlighten our mind to understand that, yes, this is how things look, this is how we perceive in samsara, but that is not the actual process that is occurring. And if we focus on that process that is occurring, we're not getting rid of samsara. We're simply perceiving it and understanding it and experiencing it from a different place. A place that isn't hooked into that illusion of permanence, of continuation, of connectivity, that makes it seem permanent. The permanence dissolves when our mind understands. It's kind of like, have you ever made those little picture books on a pad of paper? Maybe in elementary school or junior high, you did this. You draw a little stick figure on the corner of a page, and you flip the page over and you draw the same stick figure on the next page, but a little different angle or the arm in a different position. And then you do that for 30 pages. And the arm starts here and it goes here, 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 30 different positions. And then you put the pad back in its original stack of pages, and then you grab the corner and you pull one of these, right? You flip through the pages, and it appears like your stick figure is moving, right? Just like film, animation, this video, right? If you move fast enough, there almost seems to be a residual little trail of fingers that just went by. You know the hand goes from here to here to here to here to here to here to here, but your mind, your brain, your vision sense consciousness connects to all those moments, and you see a solid arc. This is a very, very same process. We experience the world in samsara like this solid arc. But in reality, it is made of moments. Just like the stick figure on the corner of the page is 30 different images, not one that's moving. In a very simplistic fashion, this is what Buddhism is saying about life in its entirety. If you were to believe when you flipped your little 30-page image that you had made a character moving its arms as a solid arc of something, some one thing animating itself, whoa, I've created a life form. But you know, because you constructed it yourself, that this is 30 different images, all instantiating one after the other, and your mind just assembles them. That's our habit energy. That then, if we attached ourselves, if we believed, even though we drew 30 different little stick figures, if we believed that this was one stick figure that was actually living and moving amongst the pages of the pad, people would call us a little bit touched, wouldn't they? No, those are 30 images, different images. They're related in a loose fashion because of you drew them and they're all in the same place. But that doesn't mean the stream that you created is itself a thing. It is 30 different things. Just like our lives has 3,000 realms in each single thought moment. Notice it's a thought moment, because without thought, there is no moment. Without you flipping the pages, right? So, this interestingly named, universally manifested physical body, bodhisattva, how many clues can Shakyamuni give us, right? The name of this bodhisattva is the origin, the mind space of the question. We're in samsara. As a samsaric being, Mr. Vimalakirti, where are all these possessions? Mother, father, wife, horses, carriages, elephants. Where are they, if not permanent things? This is that. Do you see? And so now, as in all cases in the sutras, we go to a verse format, which is itself the sermon. This is what we recite. This is what we memorize, right? Everything else is exposition around the sermon. This is why there's variations, because it depends on who he's talking to. And as I've already said, Vimalakirti is just a puppet, a voice of Shakyamuni, albeit through just a man, to make his point even more salient, yeah? And so Vimalakirti replies with the verse, which I started in the last video. But we know that Vimalakirti's verse is Shakyamuni's sermon, yes? So let's continue with that. And let me remind you how thankful I am of your practice, of being here, of participating, liking, subscribing, patrons, your support through Patreon or PayPal directly. You guys are phenomenal, and I appreciate your practice, right? It's the thing that brings us together. It's the thing that leads us to a kinder, more life-affirming, full expression of our potential and the potential around us, yeah? So I can't express how deeply appreciative I am of your commitment to this. Moving on. Countless billions of living beings come in company to visit the Bodhisattva, all arriving at this house, or at his house, at the same moment. He converts them, directs them to Buddha way. Secular writings, secret spells and incantations, craft skills, the many arts, all these he shows himself adept in, so he may aid and benefit living beings. Not to aggrandize himself, the general he, you and I, men and women, right? Mankind. We exert skills in order to elicit participation between other minds. This is what we do. I won't go off to tangents. I'll try not to. He becomes a monk in all the different creeds of the world so that thereby he may free others from delusion and save them from falling into erroneous beliefs. The living stick figure. At times he becomes the sun, the moon, a heavenly being, an Indra, a Brahma, Lord of the world. At others, he may become earth or water, or again become wind or fire. This is just talking about our influence and the way we are experienced by others, which we have no control of, but we can be empathetic to. Buddhist compassion, right? If during the kalpa there is pestilence, he manifests himself as medicinal herbs. So this is interesting because now we're talking about Buddha-ness in the state of bodhisattva, in this samsaric reality. And the ways that we experience life-affirming experience isn't necessarily through one another. It's also the products of one another, right? If you take an antibiotic to stave off an infection, the antibiotic didn't fall from the sky. It was manufactured and at some point created, put together by people in a lab, doctors, students, so on and so forth, and then manufactured through that whole pharma process to be made available by your physician to heal your distress, your sickness. This is a convoluted path of mind to mind, human beings acting in a bodhisattva way. Right? I'm always telling you, watch your health. Not because I want you to play sports, but because for the same reason we don't take intoxicants. We want to clear our mind. Any impediment to that is an impediment to our enlightenment, an obstacle. Those who drink potions made from them will be healed of sickness and cleansed of all poison. If during the kalpa there is a famine, he manifests his body as food and drink, first relieving hunger and thirst, then telling people of the law. Can't tell you how to be enlightened if you're overall concern is not dying. If during the kalpa there is a clash of arms, he accordingly rouses a mind of compassion, converting those living beings, causing them to dwell in a land without contention. There are really, literally, dozens and dozens of wars going on right now on this planet. How many we hear of is a function of propaganda and sensation, clickbait, what have you. There are people right now dying in Yemen because they can't get food, because of the aggression of other humans. That thinking is so abhorrent. That thinking is the cause of the suffering. Bringing suffering on others, the causes that are being made are horrific. And they will return to the cause initiator. Yeah? How do we as Buddhists address that? We're not made of bulletproof titanium Kevlar, right? We can't just go stand in front of all the bullets. And try as we might through various ways, organizations, what have you, to bring food to those who are needy, it's a paltry Band-Aid. It doesn't address the cause. It's helpful, and he's talking about this. But what has to happen is a change in attitude and intent. We have to bring those minds around to a more humane, life-affirming way of resolving conflicts, disputes, differences of opinion. When great armies confront one another in the field, he causes them to be of equal might, manifesting his bodhisattva powers and authority, subduing them and restoring peace. So, to say they're of equal might, I don't know about that translation. Obviously, the intent in that language is to say there's no win here. The ultimate result of this contention is mutually assured annihilation. There's that old saw, right? It's not new. 3,000 years ago, it's not new. If you're both going to annihilate each other, then there'll be nothing left. So back off for a moment and think beyond your visceral reaction and consider what's happening here. And maybe there's a new way to think about this, right? So that's what that paragraph's about. In whatever country hell exists, hell of incessant suffering, yeah? At once he sets out, journeys there, striving to relieve their sufferings. What does that mean, relieve their sufferings? To open their minds to a better way of existing, an alternative way of experiencing the world, not haunted by delusions of permanence, so on and so forth, right? In whatever country beasts and are devouring one another, in all his births he manifests himself there so he can bring aid to those lands. So this is now talking, again, the disembodied Buddha-ness that exists inherently in life. And its various ways of showing itself. And certainly as human beings with a sentient mind, we can perceive that. He shows himself subject to the 5 desires, yet is also seen to practice meditation. In other words, you and I, men and women, we are in this physical universe as men and women, But we don't have to have that consciousness of being simply an organism. We are a causal, interactive mind with that existence, so we can influence. We have agency, causing the devil's minds to be dazed and confounded so they cannot take advantage of others, correcting our attitudes and intents, our intentions, more human, more life-affirming, which applies not only to other humans, right, but the environment, because the environment is a reflection of our personal state. To live as a lotus among flames, this may be deemed a rare thing. To exist amid desire, yet practice meditation, this too is rare. So what does it mean, meditation, in this context, in this translation? To be mindful. To be mindful means to be constantly aware of the Buddha nature of all phenomena. This moment-to-moment, amazing manifestation of potential, focusing on its life-affirming experience rather than its contentious experience. Mine, not yours. Give that to me. Here, have that. This idea that we're this master of all things is very, very destructive. Rude. Yeah. Sometimes he shows himself as a woman of pleasure, enticing those prone to lechery. First, he catches them with the hook of desire, then leads them to the Buddha way. This is shoju, right? This is understanding samsara, understanding other minds' distractions, and bringing them back to understanding clearly what's going on, what's happening, how you're being controlled by things of your own invention, your misunderstanding of life, of phenomena. Sometimes he appears as a village headman, other times as leader of the merchants, as a teacher of the nation, a high-placed official, abetting and profiting all beings. Where there are those in poverty and want, he shows himself with limitless stores, using them to encourage and lead others, causing them to set their minds on attaining Bodhi. We would like that our wealthy elite would have that motivation, right? Some do to varying extent, but in our world today, it's generally not what motivates people. There's always some kind of a profit motive, yeah? Profit financial, I mean. Or just power. You could argue the same thing. Among those arrogant and full of ego, he becomes a man of great strength, overpowering and curbing their haughtiness, causing them to dwell in the unsurpassed way. There are those who wield great power and financial power in our world today who are motivated by improving human condition. And to many, that upsets them because he confronts their sense of ownership and power. He seems to them to be, what an arrogant, egotistical, he thinks he's so great, he's better than me. Witness all the derision that some will give you about Elon Musk, and I'm not saying Elon Musk is a perfect being, but his motivations are quite bodhisattva. And so he gets the ire of a lot of people like Jeff Bezos and others who see him as stealing their spotlight. They don't get it, right? Where there are those timid and quailing, he stands at their head to lend assurance. Don't worry, don't worry. It's not as desolate and desperate as you think. You can change the way you experience your life. Don't be intimidated by those other forces. They're equally misled. First, he fills them with fearlessness, then causes them to set their minds on the way. Because for you to sit and chant to your mandala, totally obsessed by your fears, stands in your way. It will be very, very difficult, let me say, for you to fuse and connect with your mandala. Your gohanzen, ultimately, is what you're doing, right? But how can you experience your Buddha-ness and your enlightenment if every single moment is obsessed with your impending doom? If you can raise just some confidence that you can change that, then you'll penetrate your gohanzen. That moment may release you all entirely from, you may forget all of those worries. Yeah. Sometimes he is seen renouncing lust and desire to become a holy man of the 5 transcendental powers. Holy? I wouldn't use that term. But certainly we've identified, even since Hinayana, that it's not holiness that we're going for. That's a very religious term. We're looking for a detachment, a wisdom, a knowing. Right? Buddhism is very earthbound, pragmatic. Opening the way, guiding living beings, causing them to dwell in the precepts, forbearance, and compassion. Remember, this is before the Lotus Sutra. If there are those looking for servants, he shows himself as a groom or menial, and after delighting his employers, he rouses in them a mind for the way. Oh, you need help? I'll be the perfect employee. Tell me, direct me what you need, and I will do the tasks exceeding your expectation. And when you are then relaxed, knowing things are being taken care of, and you are more open to not obsessing about these things you need done, but to your experience of success, let me introduce you to enlightenment. Whatever others are looking for, he supplies it to win them to the Buddha way. With his skill in the power of expedient means, he can satisfy all their wants. We live in the worlds of desire. So if you want to elicit yourself as a friend, that is your first step to creating relationships. And only once that relationship is then trusted, has value, merit, the opportunity exists for influence. This is the way of samsara. This is the way of bodhisattva. Thus, his ways are beyond measure. His practices know no bounds. Infinite in wisdom, he saves and emancipates countless beings. Though all the Buddhas for numberless billions of kalpas should praise the merits he achieves, they could never finish doing so. So this is just that bearing witness kind of thing, that in coursing your life this way, you are in rhythm with, in concert with. Concert, interesting word. Sound, rhythm, singing, chanting. The vibrations of the universe, if you will, all contain this note of Buddha. And when you behave in alignment with that beneficent, friendship, supportive wisdom, you resonate with Buddha. That's what that says. Who can hear of this law and not set his mind on the attainment of Bodhi? Who but the utterly worthless, the blindly ignorant, the witless? And thus ends the chapter. So who in their right mind would not want to be this person? Living as we are in samsara, wouldn't Bodhi be the absolute pinnacle of living this life? Helping others, whether it's in cleaning the house or working in the gardens or being a good friend, whatever act of compassion that we can fulfill with one another draws us closer, itai doshin, draws our minds closer. And if our mind is always focused on Buddha, then every act becomes enlightenment, leads the path to enlightenment. Because no matter in society how inferior or lesser you may seem, to those who seem to be the elite, the powerful, the whatevers, the bosses, by your meritorious actions, meritorious in spirit, in intent, will affect them to raise their valuation, which is a samsaric thing, of you, your mind. And they will be curious. And this is how you penetrate their consciousness. Influence them. You're already doing it. This is the Buddha way. Make sense? Okay. This next chapter is called Entering the Gate of Non-Dualism. I'll see how this reads, but the implication of the title would be Gohonzon, wouldn't it? That's our gate to Buddha-ness, our gate from samsaric experience to samsaric enlightenment experience. And I think, as is so far the case, since this is a shift in focus, a new chapter, we will begin this one in the next video. Okay? In the meantime, take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. Keep your practice strong. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If it's helpful, download the audio podcast. You can listen to them while you do other things, or just sit quietly. Maybe you chant for 20 minutes, and then you listen to the podcast, and then you do Gangyo. However you want to use that tool, please do so. I find that chanting for a while before I engage in study helps me absorb much more quickly the concepts that I'm reading, either from threefoldlotus.com and those papers there. Make suggestions. Again, it isn't a full library, but it has many of the basic questions of practicing Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra via Nichiren scholarship, yeah? And likewise, if you find something that seems like it might be an error, I definitely want to know that. perfection is a goal. It's not a realization. Yeah. What else do I want to remind you of? The bookstore, the mandala store, of course. I still get questions about, what about my old mandala, or a lot of people like to call those mandalas gohanzans, even though they're not. Gohanzan is in the mind. Read Nichiren. Quite literally, and I paraphrase, never seek this gohanzan outside of yourself. These are Nichiren's words. This mandala is a tool to help us focus our senses on that gohanzan, that gate, that doorway to our enlightenment, Buddha-ness. Yeah? And that's why I believe it's critically important that we use a mandala created by Nichiren. Because Nichiren is our mentor. Not Nico, not Paul, not Dan, not whoever. And this is what has happened over the centuries. People, sects, groups have claimed Nichiren's scholarship for themselves and now promote themselves as the modern Nichiren. They totally usurped Nichiren. And so they put their own names and dates and info on the mandala, which they copy. And they say, here, pray to this. Yeah, it's a prayer at that point, because you're not practicing Nichiren's doctrine of Lotus Sutra Buddhism. You're practicing Barney's mandala. That's not Nichiren. That's an imposter. And I feel very strongly about that. And even the groups that separate and politically maneuver around sects, you know what I'm talking about. They're consumed at first with the idea of whose mandala is the truest one. Well, obviously you're not practicing Buddhism at all. Because there is only one mandala, the one that evolved from Nichiren's insights and scholarship. And that's the mandala we want to use. That's the tool that was created for all of mankind. All of sentient minds throughout the universe. Not Bob's. If you're arguing about which one's best, then you're lost. To the point where now some of these groups are saying, well, screw it all together. We don't need a mandala. Just chant. Wow, how far are you willing to go? So yeah, that's why I have a very simple little online store, cafepress.com/gohanzan, with a travel size, a larger size. It's an accurate digital copy of the final gohanzans, the final mandalas that Nichiren inscribed himself. You don't need to take my word for it. I have videos on here about Nichiren's mandala that indicate groups. There's a whole school of scholarship based on the history of the mandalas. Several books you can buy online, Amazon or Lulu, of this workshop where they analyze all of the different extant mandalas, 125 extant mandalas that are in various collections, some personal, some organizational, but they're actual Nichiren inscribed mandalas. And you can see the evolution. Mandalas Nichiren created specifically for one of his lay believers who was a pseudo-Nichiren, someone teaching the teachings from Nichiren to large groups of people, gave those people certain mandala, always with Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, but not always with the entire Lotus Sutra story. By the time he developed that later in his teaching and practice, Nichiren was focused on creating a mandala for humanity. That's this one. And there are others like it, but they are the final days of Nichiren's expression of the ultimate focusing tool, representing our enlightenment, our self-practice. Oops. All right. That's enough. I'm going to stop. And take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.